The complete works of Swami Vivekananda, the Vedanta, lecture delivered by Swami Vivekananda at Lahore in 1897, Part 5. Next will come the question, apart from those old arguments which only rise in the external world, the arguments in support of design. Who created this external world? Who created matter, etc.? The idea here is to know the truth only from the inner nature of man, and the question arises just in the same way as it arose about the soul. Take for granted that the soul is unchangeable in each man, which is neither the mind nor the body. There is still a unity of idea among the souls, a unity of feeling, of sympathy. How is it possible that my soul can act upon your soul? Where is the medium through which it can work? Where is the medium through which it can act? How is it I can feel about your souls? What is it that is in touch both with your soul and with my soul? Therefore, there is a metaphysical necessity of admitting another soul, for it must be a soul which acts in contact with all the different souls, and in through matter, one soul which covers the interpenetrates all the infinite number of souls in the world, in and through which they live, in and through which they sympathize and love and work for one another. And this universal soul is Paramatman, the Lord God of the universe. Again, it follows that because the soul is not made of matter, since it is spiritual, it cannot obey the laws of matter. It cannot be judged by the laws of matter. It is therefore unconquerable, birthless, deathless, and changeless. This self weapons cannot pierce, nor fire can burn, water cannot wet, nor air can dry up. Changeless, all pervading, unmoving, immovable, eternal is this self of man. We learn according to the Gita and the Vedanta that this individual self is also Vibhu, and according to Kapila is omnipresent. Of course, there are sects in India which hold that the self is unknown, infinitely small. But what they mean is unknown, is manifestation. It is real nature, its real nature is Vibhu, all pervading. Then comes another idea, startling perhaps, yet characteristically Indian idea. And if there is any idea that is common to all our sects, it is this. Therefore, I beg you to pay attention to this one idea and to remember it, for this is the very foundation of everything we have in India. The idea is this. You have heard of the doctrine of physical evolution preached in the Western world by the German and English savants. It tells us that the bodies of the different animals are really one. The differences that we see are but different expressions of the same series, from the lowest worm to the highest and the most saintly. It is but one, the one changing into another, and so on, going up and up, higher and higher until it attains perfection. We had that idea also, declares our yogi Patanjali. One species, the jati is species, changes into another species, evolution. Parinam means one thing changing into another, just as one species changes into another. Where do we differ from the Europeans? Patanjali says, Prakritya Purat, by the infilling of nature. The European says it is competition, natural and sexual selection, etc., that forces one body to take in the form of another. But here is another idea, still better analysis, going deeper into the one thing and saying, by the infilling of nature, what is meant by this infilling of nature? We admit that the amoeba goes higher and higher until it becomes a Buddha. We admit that we are at the same time as much certain that you cannot get an amount of work out of a machine unless you have put in it some shape or another. The sum total of the energy remains the same, whatever the form it may take. If you want a mass of energy at one end, you have got to put it in at the other end. It may be in another form, but the amount of energy that should be produced out of it must be the same. Therefore, if a Buddha is the one end of change, the very amoeba must have been the Buddha also. If the Buddha is evolved amoeba, the amoeba was the involved Buddha also. If this universe is the manifestation of an almost infinite amount of energy, when this universe was in a state of pralaya, it must have represented the same amount of involved energy. It cannot have been otherwise. As such, it follows that every soul is infinite, from the lowest worm that crawls under our feet to the noblest and greatest of saints. All have this infinite power, infinite purity, and infinite everything. Only the difference is the degree of manifestation. The worm is only manifesting just a little bit of that energy. You have manifested more. Another God-man has manifested still more. That is all the difference. But that infinite power is there all the same, says Patanjali. Like the peasant irrigating his field. Through a little corner of his field, he brings water from a reservoir somewhere, and perhaps he has got a little lock that prevents the water from rushing into his field. When he wants water, he has to simply open the lock and in rushes the water of its own power. The power has not to be added. It is already there in the reservoir. Each and every one of us, every being, has his own background, or such a reservoir of strength, infinite power, infinite purity, infinite bliss, and existence infinite. Only these locks, these bodies are hindering us from expressing what we really are to the very fullest. And as these bodies become more and more finely organized, and as the tamogun becomes rajogun, and as the rajogun becomes sattvagun, more and more of this power and purity becomes manifest. And therefore it is that our people have been so careful about eating and drinking and the food question. It may be that the original ideas have been lost, just as the ideas with our marriage, which though not belonging to the subject, I may take as an example. If I have another opportunity, I will talk to you about these, but let me tell you now that the ideas behind our marriage system are the only ideas through which there can be real civilization. There cannot be anything else. If a man or a woman were allowed the freedom to take up any woman or man as wife or husband, if individual pleasure, satisfaction of the animal instincts were to be allowed to run loose in the society, the result must be evil children, wicked and demonical. A man in every country is, on the one hand, producing these brutal children, and on the other hand, multiplying the police force to keep these brutes down. The question is not how to destroy evil that way, but how to prevent the very birth of evil. And so long as you live in a society, your marriage certainly affects every member of it. And therefore, society has the right to dictate whom you shall marry and whom you shall not. And great ideas of this kind have been behind the system of marriage here, what they call the astrological jati of the bride and the bridegroom. And in passing, I may remark that according to Manu, a child who is born of lust is not an Aryan. The child whose very conception and whose death is according to the rules of the Vedas, such is an Aryan. Yes, and less of these Aryan children are being produced in every country, and the result is the mass of evil which we call Kali Yuga. But we have lost all these ideals. It is true that we cannot carry all these ideas to the fullest now. It is perfectly true. We have made almost a caricature of some of these great ideas. It is lamentably true that the fathers and mothers are not what they were in old times. Neither is society so educated as it used to be. Neither has society that love for individuals that it used to have. But, however, faulty the working out may be, the principle is sound. And if its application has become defective, if one method has failed, take up the principle and work it out better. Why kill the principle? The same applies to the food question. The work and details are bad, very bad indeed, but that does not hurt the principle. The principle is eternal and must be there. Work it out afresh and make a reformed application. This is the orate great idea of the Atman, which every one of our sects of India has to believe. Only as we shall find the dualists preach that this Atman by evil works through Sankuchita, that is, all its powers and its natures become contracted. And by good works again, that nature expands. And the Advaitist says that the Atman never expands nor contracts, but seems to do so. It appears to have become contracted. That is all the difference. But all have the one idea that our Atman has all the powers already. Not that anything will come to it from outside, not that anything will drop into it from the skies. Mark you, your Vedas are not inspired, but expired. Not that they came from anywhere outside, but they are the eternal laws living in every soul. The Vedas are in the soul of the ant, in the soul of God. The ant has only to evolve and to get the body of a sage or a rishi, and the Vedas will come out, eternal laws expressing themselves. This is the one great idea to understand that our power is already ours. Our salvation is already within us. Say either that it has become contracted, or say that it has become covered with the evil of Maya. It matters little. The idea is there already. You must have to believe in that. Believe in the possibility of everybody. That even in the lowest man there is the same possibility as in the Buddha. This is the doctrine of the Atman.